It's good. I agree. We need 14,000 pieces of paper.
My dad.
Good evening. I'd like to call a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District tonight, Tuesday, September 6th at 6:30. And tonight's meeting is being held in the District Administration Building and live streamed through YouTube. Let's see. Next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of meditation. And I ask that you keep in your thoughts Nina Kent, a senior library clerk at Goshen High School. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is executive session, but before I get a motion for that, I just wanted to welcome our student representative, Michael, is it Lombardi? Okay, welcome. And you will see that we will be going to executive session in a little bit, so we won't be here, but then we'll be coming back. All right, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I need a motion for the executive session. Shannon and Tom. Be it resolved, the Board of Education will enter into executive session with the intent to reconvene the business portion of the meeting for discussions related to the employment history of a particular persons. All those in favor? Opposed? I'd like to resume the meeting. Next on the agenda is privilege of the floor. Oh, a motion, I'm sorry, I need a motion to go back into the meeting. Brett and Jason. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Next on the agenda is privilege of the floor. Privilege of the floor, policy number 3225. Persons wishing to speak should first be recognized by the president, then identify themselves. Any group or organization wishing to address the board must identify a single spokesperson. Comments shall be brief and concise, generally not exceeding 2 minutes in length per speaker, which may be extended at the direction of the board president. Speakers may comment on matters related to district business only. The board will not permit in public session discussions involving individual district personnel or students. Persons wishing to discuss matters involving individual district personnel or students should present their comments and or concerns to the superintendent during regular business hours. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Obscene language, libelous statements, threats of violence, statements advocating racial, religious, or other forms of prejudice will not be tolerated. And I do have a list of folks that already signed up. First on the list, I have Andrew. Is it Romulo?
Romulo.
Romulo.
It's okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
Many have tried.
Okay,
many
we do
not
have a
succeeded.
podium set up,
Sure.
and there should be a speaker on there.
Good evening, everyone.
Is there a button on there for you?
It's on.
Hello.
It's on? It's on. Okay, great, thank you.
And did I just mute it?
Red light should be on.
light on?
Red light should be on. I did mute it. All right.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this time. Again, my name is Andrew Romulo. A father of 2 students in the district. One of them is currently attending CJ Hooker Middle School. Tonight, the matter regarding restrictions of book bags at the middle school. I just sort of wanted to raise some questions, concerns, criticisms, if you will, about the policy. I guess I'll start off with the questions. Question 1, just curious about what the thought process is behind the policy, and perhaps the parameters around what is allowed, what is not allowed, with regards to not using school bags in the middle school. What are some of the disciplinary actions that might be, our students might face if they do choose to bring their book bag to school? Number 2, I guess this is sort of, more so criticism, if anything. How can we improve the communication flow back to the parents? We only learned of this after the first day of school, when our child came home and said that this was something that was going to be implemented this school year. It's my understanding that this is a policy that might have already been in the books prior to COVID, and now is being reinstated now that things are starting to curve a little bit. So, obviously we want to keep our children as prepared and set up to be successful, during particularly this school year, because they've been through so much. And my kids in particular may have some trouble making, quick adjustments to changes, and the fact that they were kind of just learn of this after the first day of school. We're still trying to figure out what are the benefits, what are the pros and cons to this. And actually, I did forget one question, and this is something that just is more for us, but also for other parents as well. I don't know if there's been conversations amongst the board or at the district level as far as whether or not this policy is equitable for all students in all their situations. So that's pretty much the 3 things I wanted to present today, and any information that you can get back to me either in a conversation now or with follow-up information would be greatly appreciated. And we really look forward to see how this is going to unfold as the school year progresses on. But definitely these are the top 3 things on my mind I would like to hear about.
Thank you for your comments. I think it probably will be something that we will have to follow up on.
Okay.
Okay, but I appreciate it.
Nothing you can speak on here as far as.
Thank you. I know this has been a long-standing practice that
predates even my time serving as a principal in the building when I was principal at the high school.
Okay.
Rationale has always been around safety. So when children are in that transitional age between middle school and high school, it certainly allows for, in terms of building level management, to make sure that certain things are being carried with them that aren't supposed to be with them. They know that it's isolated, if you will, to the locker and or the bus at the same time, i.e. if a weapon comes in, if there's an issue with substance abuse, with drugs, if they can isolate it to a particular area. And if they're not carrying bags, it certainly cuts down the potential also for them to be transporting it throughout the school day as well. Doesn't mean that we can't go back and look at what different ways can we accomplish the same things. I'm certainly aware through COVID, and just as a matter too, this is not a policy of the Board of Education. This is a building level practice decision.
Okay.
So realistically, you're going to see a building level code decided between teachers and principals of that building and how to best manage some of the behaviors that they're seeing. But it certainly doesn't mean that we can't foster some conversation with the building level to see if we can accomplish some of the goals and some of the changes that the parents are looking for.
Well, that clarification itself is helpful, because I would imagine that there's a little more flexibility with it being a building-wide policy versus something on a DOE level.
Yep,
Super
absolutely.
helpful. And I think something that you just mentioned speaks more towards the equity of all students, right? This policy might affect one student and another student in different ways. Again, we're still trying to see how it's gonna affect our child at home. But yeah, just trying to come up with options versus
Absolutely.
just one, sort of building-wide policy that might work for all.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next on privilege of the floor, hopefully I'm pronouncing, is it Salvatore?
Yep.
Okay, Labruno, is it Labruno or Labruno?
Labruno.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Well, Andrew did such a great job on the topic of book bags, so I don't have too much to add. But I would just like to express that it was a surprise for us and our son to learn about this practice in the building as opposed to district policy, which I'm learning the difference now based on Dr. Coates' comments. I know it's a long-standing practice. Number one, with COVID, things have changed a little bit. Now we've got kids with a lot of Chromebooks, things like that. First thing I thought of is my son walking down the hall with an expensive Chromebook, and I thought a book bag would be a better place for that. So I think maybe that might factor into it a little bit. Secondly, obviously, I assumed that the idea behind having the book bag policy might be related to safety, and that was a decision, that the school itself had come up with. But again, sometimes I think, I'd like to know a little bit more about what went into that, how that came about. I mean, is that just like, people saying that it would be safer if kids didn't have book bags, or is that based on some long-term study, or someone looked at this policy used in other school districts and been successful for this reason? So I certainly look forward to hearing from the board and just a little bit more about the book bags. And I mean, I'm sort of, I don't want to say old school, but when you go to school, you bring your books, and when you go to class, make sure you have everything with you. I get the idea that the kids should be learning to use the lockers, and that will help them, but in some cases, I think Andrew used the term equitable. Different students have different needs. I'm just looking for a little bit of more information, more discussion about that policy. Thank you.
Next on privilege of the floor, Mary Zakharkevitz.
Thank you. Hi, Mary. So similar to the topic that was just discussed, I'm actually bringing up a new one too with regards to the high school. At Sutton High School, it seems like lunch period, they're no longer allowed outdoor privileges. So this was news to me, but just trying to understand why that's been taken away. If there's some alternative solutions we could think about. I think the library is off limits because of renovations, but maybe the gym, maybe sports alternatives, something of that nature. I know it's a little overcrowded in the lunchroom, so my son is especially struggling with that, and I'm sure a lot of other kids are too. So that's one question. Do you want me to stop and pause to see if there's any reason that we can discuss now?
I personally, this is the first I'm hearing of it.
Okay, so then, actually, two more topics. The second one is the code of conduct. Looks like it has not been officially revised since 2012.
And it's so funny, we've been having it's not funny, but we've been having conversations about that, so, and I'm on the policy committee as well, so that is definitely a priority, and we're gonna be scheduling that.
And if you need help from parents, I had pointed out a number of things to Jen Martin last year that were inconsistencies, so I'd be happy to be a parent advocate. And then the last item is just with regards to any sort of additional student counseling or support. I did notice in the Chronicle recently that it looks like the district committed to ADAC services, so I want to make sure that's in fact going to happen. Given the number of drug incidents last year, as well as just everything our kids are dealing with, I think they need a lot of support. So just really looking to understand where we're at with that.
I know that ADAC is forthcoming, but we'll be giving you more information about that very soon.
Good.
I don't have dates.
We actually have a meeting scheduled for this week with JS, the middle school, and the high school to plan out the calendar of when they're coming in.
Awesome.
We're also in the process too, we've been approved as a county site for a satellite for mental health. We're in the process of finding them a spot at the high school. We put an addition on and we filled that space up, so we're trying to find an
That's
appropriate.
good to hear.
Yeah.
So more proactive, right?
Yes.
Less reactive. Awesome. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I think we also discussed having student involvement in this as we move forward too, so I don't want to lose sight of that either.
Last on privilege of the floor, Carrie, is it Ignacy? Ignary, I'm sorry, just the handwriting, I promise.
Good evening,
Thank you.
everyone. All the members. Just wanted to support other parents here as my concerns are the same with the backpack issue. I'm going to speak to my particular student who struggles with organization skills. We really have it structured, and part of that tool that is so necessary to help him find success is having that backpack with him. And then again, I have a 2007 graduate, a 2011 graduate, and particularly with boys as they go through this growth period of their life and they become more athletic, they tend to become much more lean. And when they become more lean, their electrolytes drop significantly. And then dehydration sets upon them, and then the response to that through their bodies is migraines. I've been called many a time with my older boys up to the high school, middle school, and then off we go to the pediatrician to get migraine meds. And I feel that that is easily negated when they're able to have all of what their necessities are through the day. And how do we do that? By having a backpack. We have our water, we have our books, we have our Chromebooks, whatever's necessary is kept in one spot. So I just would like to reiterate the support of having kids have their backpacks. I don't know if not having them is the solution to hidden objects. So I don't think that's the answer. I think if that's what we're looking at and then we're holding back on backpacks, the real issue is what do the students possibly have on them? We have to come up with other solutions. The backpack is not the answer. So needless to say, I'm here to just take it all in. It's good to see everybody and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the agenda is the President's report. I don't have anything for this evening. Next, legislative update.
First meeting is tomorrow night, so next meeting, that's on.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda, the Superintendent's report, Dr. Curtis Coates.
Sorry about that. So I wanted to just take a moment and speak to some of the improvements that we've made since the opening of school. One of them being in the realm of transportation. So for the first time this year, one of the things that we were able to do was send out all of our routing and bus stop information digitally. Ms. Wells worked closely through the last weeks of summer to make sure that all of that went out. And one of the things that, and I'm going to jinx it probably by saying it, that Mrs. Farrell shared with me on the first day was it was eerily quiet in the morning on the first day of school. So it seemed that things worked much better. I can tell you from a staffing perspective, we're certainly up in the number of drivers versus where we started last year from, which absolutely helped with us being able to route our buses more efficiently. And we are still dealing with some issues at dismissal, primarily with our 2 elementary buildings, with the elementary buildings being able to make sure that our youngest students know the bus that they're supposed to be able to get on. We're still dealing with a space issue. All of you know the way GIS is with the number of buses that we have to put through and being able to get them through and out as quickly as we can. But our drivers are working very hard with the transportation center to try to run as many of the routes as quickly as they can and get them through there as fast as they can. But we have seen vast improvements from where we were in terms of last year with transportation. One of the other things I wanted to make our families aware of that primarily at the high school and the middle school, we have moved into live grading for this year. So what does that mean? On the parent portal, you used to have to wait or you used to have to email your teacher to be able to get your child's grades. Our teachers have now been instructed by their building administrators that grades will be loaded into the school tool parent portal, and they can expect to start to see as the teachers load those grades in there on an ongoing basis what some of the grades are being loaded in and not have to wait through the end of the semester. Mr. Carter and I will be following up with the building administrators just to monitor progress on that as well. The other item I wanted to speak with the board about, and I shared it with the board earlier this week, Senator Skoufis has penned a letter that he was looking for district support on both from superintendents and from boards of education regarding a letter to the IDA agency of Orange County. Different from other counties in the region, school boards and municipalities have no seat at the table when the IDA is going to decide on a pilot. For instance, the multi-million-dollar pilot that was just given to Legoland for them to come in. Listen, I'm for it. Bring new agencies in, bring new private business in. We need it. That's the backbone of supporting a school district. But at the same time, similar to what we saw with the Galleria Mall, when those pilots end, if they're not planned out properly, Galleria Mall went through a massive reassessment, and when it came on the tax roll, over 2 years cost the district, I think, over $6 million, if I remember correctly. What the letter Senator Skoufis is proposing is it at least gives districts a seat at the table to say, hey, listen, we know that these pilots are good for private business within the county. Let us at least give some feedback, some real feedback that can be considered while you're negotiating these pilots, and we can really let you know the impact of what happens. That being said, these pilots really do have limitations. They certainly take a full assessment and drop them significantly. I use the example of the mall at the same time. That when the mall came off, property values were way down. They reassessed, they grieved their taxes. There's going to be limitations there. So 2 things I'm asking for. Number one, I do encourage the board to support Senator Skoufis' letter. That can be accomplished through 1 of 2 ways. Number one, just give me verbal authorization that yes, we would support signing on as a member district to the letter that the senator is sending. Or if you want to take even deeper action on that, some districts actually will prepare a resolution adopting the letter, which I could work with Mrs. Farrell at the next meeting to do if you were interested in doing so.
Absolutely, strong as possible.
Do you need help?
Question. Maybe I don't know if you know the answer or not. Aren't we supposed to have representation already, or is that not in Orange County?
Orange County. So I'll use Rockland County.
That's kind of been disputed back and forth for probably a decade.
So they certainly allow us to come to the meetings. They certainly allow us to hear what's going on. But when it comes to the final decision-making process, It's the IDA, the members of the IDA who broker and sign off on the final agreement. The municipalities and the school districts have no say in the final decision.
No say, I know that, but we're not supposed to have say.
Right now, currently, under the organization of the IDA, we do not.
Other counties have.
If you're a component member of wherever that pilot agreement is going to affect,
Right.
you have the ability to vote on or against whatever the proposed agreement would be.
And I was supporter, right?
Everybody handles it different. Newburgh went to their school district. The town of Newburgh went to their school district and said, hey, there was a company that wanted to build across the street from the mall. Town went to the school district and said, how do you guys feel about it? They said, no, the pilot is hurting us. They denied the project. Other towns and districts handle it differently. Ours does not. Our town does not come to us. But anything we can send to them to give us some more support, I'm for it.
And listen, I don't think it has to be a statement against pilots. That's not what I'm saying. We need to encourage business to come to the area. However, we need to be real about the impact. I mean, use Valley Central as an example on the other town road. All those warehouses that they built, the pilots that they gave away, that's millions of dollars in tax revenue that goes away for years.
That's kind of questionable, right? Without that development, the farmers paying a lot less than what those guys are paying in the pilot. So I don't know if I completely agree with that. So, and actually, I'm a proponent for longer pilots. So you don't end up with a 15-year pilot like you did in Galleria, and then you came off of a down economy, raise your taxes, reassess a lower thing, and that was a 30-year pilot, and you still need to deal with that. So I know people get caught up in 10-year pilots and things like that. I agree that we should have a say in it. I think we need to encourage people to develop in the area and then collect more taxes than we are collecting currently on those properties. And,
I think what you,
on the pilots, but that's just my opinion.
no, but I think what you speak to is a bigger issue in New York State and how we fund their public utilities. But that's a whole different conversation.
Basically,
Sorry,
just what I have to say.
we'll table that thing.
So we do want Maureen, is there anyone in agreement with that?
And how would this impact, you had mentioned that municipality versus the school district? Would be one singular voice here, or would the municipality be heard as well?
So I'll use Rockland County as an example. Rockland County, if it's a township and a school district, essentially you get two voting voices that would be able to weigh in if there's a pilot that affects a municipality. So the school district and the township and essentially the village would all have a say and be able to weigh in on the final decision of the pilot.
Any other questions?
So we'll work together, Mrs. Farrell, on that for next meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, the Assistant Superintendent for Business Report, Mr. Jason Carter. Oh, sorry, Maureen. All right, guys. Thank you. Maureen, I'm sorry.
No problem. Okay, so, tax collection has kicked off and it has begun rather quickly. We're receiving payments in the drop box out in the lobby here, but the bulk of our payments are coming to our post office box locally. Michelle is filling in and doing a great job of handling a lot of phone calls right now and processing payments under the tutelage of Andrea. The state reports we're working on. The transparency report has been completed and submitted on Friday by Nicole and Dr. Coates. And we're now finalizing the state aid reports this week. I hope to have them submitted and final on Friday. Both reports have been a little more challenging this year, and that's due to the way we have to report all of the federal funding that we're getting, the ARP funds and the ESSER funds. So tonight in your board package, you'll have financial reports for the month of July. And we have the Treasury Reports, and the expenditure side, you'll see, and I usually cover, just so you know, the general fund. I don't go over all of the funds, but the most important really to keep an eye on is the general fund. So the general fund expenses for the month of July were $1.9 million. And for money, we did not receive much money at all. We received a small amount of $1,300, and that's typical in the months of July and August both. We don't get much revenue in a school district. Any receipts that we do get could be for the prior year's books that are still being closed. So they could be for receivables or state aid that we have reported as a receivable and not revenue. Then for the budget status reports, again, our total expenses were $1.9 million, and the revenue earned was $1,300. So that you'll see change a lot in September when you start getting the taxes, the revenue will go up. And state aid, we do not usually get state aid as a revenue until December, because our state aid payments go towards our TRS liability for the months of September, October, and November. But I can remind you all of that when we get there. And that's all I have for tonight.
Nice job.
Thank you.
This is a good update for the board.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, Personnel, and Technology report. I just want to keep you on your toes, make sure you're awake. Mr. Jason Carter.
Thank you, Mrs. Sully. Good evening, everyone. I don't have any news to report this evening. However, I would like to say that we enjoyed our first few days back with all of our students in the buildings, particularly at Scotchtown, to see our UPK children in the classrooms for the first time. Close and I had a chance to make a visit. A lot of smiling faces, a lot of nice energy. And I would like to say thank you to Scotchtown Avenue teachers, faculty, staff members, but also Mrs. Driscoll for all of her hard work and the support that she provided in helping us to get the students into the building safely and to run a successful few days there at the upstart of the UPK program in Scotchtown. That's it for me this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, I need a motion for the consent agenda. Shannon, Brett? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? Yeah, the next one's a long one. Next on the agenda, I need a motion to authorize the execution and delivery of joint intermunicipal agreement with Orange Ulster BOCES. Jason and Tom. Here we go. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves the following. This resolution dated September 6, 2022, of the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District, authorizing the execution and delivery of an intermunicipal joint agreement with the Board of Cooperative Educational Services of the Sole Supervisory District of Orange and Ulster Counties and its component districts with respect to a proposed capital project and determining other matters in connection therewith. Whereas the Board of Cooperative Educational Services of the Sole Supervisory District of Orange and Ulster Counties, New York, BOCES, is proposing to undertake a project consisting of the following: construction, reconstruction, and renovation of and additions to certain buildings, facilities, and sites owned or to be owned by BOCES at the Arden Hill campus and the Gibson Road campus, including site improvements and original furnishings, equipment, machinery, apparatus, thank you, and incidental improvements and expenses in connection therewith, collectively the project, at a maximum estimated cost of $159,483. And whereas said project has been determined to be a Type 1 action pursuant to the regulations of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation promulgated pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the implementation of which, as proposed, the BOCES has determined will not result in any significant adverse environmental impact. And whereas BOCES has requested that each of its 17 component districts, including the Goshen Central School District, the district, enter into an intermunicipal joint agreement, the joint agreement with respect to the project. And whereas the joint agreement sets forth the maximum estimated cost of the project, provides for an allocation and apportionment of said costs among the component school districts pursuant to the resident weighted average daily attendance value assigned to each component school district for the 2021-2022 fiscal year, and sets forth the allocation and apportionment of said costs to each such component school district in accordance with the RWADA value assigned to each component district. And whereas the district's Board of Education desires to authorize the execution and delivery of the joint agreement by the district. Now therefore, be it resolved by this Board of Education as follows. Section 1. The form and substance of the joint agreement, in substantially the form presented to this meeting and attached hereto as Exhibit A, are hereby approved, and the execution of the delivery of the joint agreement by the district are hereby authorized. The President of the Board of Education is hereby authorized on behalf of the district to execute and deliver the joint agreement. The joint agreement shall be in substantially the form thereof presented to this meeting with such changes, variations, omissions, and insertions as the President of the Board of Education shall approve. The execution thereof by the President to constitute conclusive evidence of such approval. Section 2. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption. All the folks in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda, I need a motion. Oh, sorry, old business. 11.2, I need a motion to approve entering into intermunicipal joint agreement with Orange Ulster BOCES. Jason and Shannon. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby authorizes the President of the Goshen Central School District Board of Education to enter into an intermunicipal joint agreement with Orange Ulster BOCES and component districts for the Orange Ulster BOCES capital project as presented at this meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? New business. I need a motion to approve minutes. Shannon and Billy. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves the minutes for the August 30th, 2022 regular board meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? I need a motion for 12.2. Shannon and Brett. Approve the stipulation of settlement between Goshen School District and employee 090622. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the terms of the stipulation of settlement between the district and employee number 090622, resolving SED case number 38,877, dated August 29, 2022, and authorizes its superintendent of schools to sign said stipulation of settlement on behalf of the district. The stipulation of settlement shall be incorporated by reference within the minutes of this meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 12.3, I need a motion to approve cooperative services transportation contract with Orange Ulster BOCES. I'm Tom and Jason. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education awards the regular school year contract for 2022-2023 special education transportation, effective September 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, for the transportation of Goshen Central School District special education students to Green Chimneys, Clearpool School, Middle Hope Elementary, Rockland BOCES Hilltop Elementary, and Farley Rockland BOCES Jesse Kaplan, number 4, Rockland BOCES Riverview and Mountainside, Rockland BOCES Mountainside, and CTEC PM, South Orangetown and Birchwood, Southern Westchester BOCES, Suffolk Middle School, and Montebello, in accordance with the Orange Ulster BOCES bid with Quality Bus Services, LLC, in the amount of $649,859.70. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the Board of Education President and Superintendent to execute the transportation contract with Orange Ulster BOCES. All those in favor? Opposed? I need a motion to approve appointment of certain district official positions. Jason, Brett? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves the following change to a certain district official position for the 2022-2023 school year, from the original appointment at the July 11, 2022 Board of Education reorganizational meeting. The position is the DASA designee at Goshen High School from Sarah Jabbar to Gregory Voloshin, effective 8/16/22. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to approve a resignation. I have Jason and Shannon. Be it resolved that the Board of Education accepts the resignation of Daniel Van Cura, tenured social studies teacher, for purposes of retirement, effective April 30th, 2023, as set forth in a letter signed by Mr. Van Cura dated August 29th, 2022. All those in favor? Opposed? I need a motion to approve the PPS agreement. Shannon and Jason. Be it resolved, the Board of Education enters into a service agreement with Sign Language Resources Incorporated to provide sign language services for the Goshen Central School District for the 2022-2023 school year as follows. Services between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. weekdays at $85 per hour per interpreter. Services between 5 p.m. and 11 p.m. weekdays, $95 per hour per interpreter. And services between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. weekdays, anytime on weekends and holidays, $105 per hour per interpreter. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the Superintendent of Schools to execute the agreement. All those in favor? Opposed? I need a motion to approve the agreement for special education services, certified occupational therapy assistant. Tom and Tom. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves entering into an agreement with Victoria Walters to provide certified occupational therapy assistant services to special education students effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 at a rate of $38 per hour as needed. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the Superintendent of Schools to execute the agreement. All those in favor? Opposed? I need a motion to approve budgetary transfer. Shannon and Billy. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves the following budgetary transfer. Can I say as presented? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Next on the agenda, privilege of the floor. Next on the agenda, board member issues. Any committee reports?
Quick question. When do we expect to hear the decisions made by the other component districts regarding the joint agreement proposals?
I can ask.
I saw the calendar. Was that calendar? I opened up briefly right here. Is that supposed to be? Am I supposed to be able to see something?
So I saw information before he sent it. I saw information from GIS. I saw information from the middle school. And I saw information from the high school.
I didn't see anything on it either.
I didn't see anything.
I did see something for August 18th, so I think you have to just go back and write out the engine for the day.
That looked like,
So, I thought we tried to click
If
something
you all,
right. Okay.
do you all do it on your phones?
yeah,
Maybe I can ask Mr. Rediker to look with you
Yeah,
for 5 minutes after the meeting.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rediker.
You're welcome.
John. Any other comments? Well, then that closes the meeting for this evening. Thank you everyone for coming. Have a good evening. I need a motion to close the evening, the meeting. Motion closed. Tom, Jason, thank you.